Hello. Uh, we tried to deliver this lecture yesterday, but due to the certain technicalities, the internet was not coming. The lecture could not be recorded and communicated to you. Welcome back. Uh, Let us deal with religion and medieval Indian rulers. Actually, all those who have been following my this series of lectures, uh, they know that basically we are dealing with Aurangzeb, the history of Aurangzeb. But suddenly, in between, I'm going to deal with a topic which is not going to be confined to the period of Aurangzeb. In order to understand Aurangzeb and his religious policy, you may say, it is very necessary for us to go a little back in time and look at how religion was being used or not used uh, by the other rulers which came to rule over India before Aurangzeb. Naturally, we are not going to deal with the ancient period. We would be dealing with uh, those rulers who are important as far as the medieval phase of Indian history is concerned. Now, all of us are aware, you would be aware that whenever a mention of medieval is made, that is made in a was being given in importance when old ideas prevailed, when so-called modernism was not there, Rudivadi thought that is generally taken to be the medieval throughout the world. The word stands for a period of strife, a period of discrimination. Democracy was not there, the citizenship rights were not there, and people were being killed and discriminated on the basis of their sect, their creed, their thought. They were being discriminated, they were being suppressed. That is generally the perception of the people as far as medieval India is concerned. Uh, the term medieval also, has another sense. Uh, there are three distinct, phases, you can say, distinct medieval past of India. The period when the small city states existed, provincial states existed, when um, there was no centralized form of government in the country. The period from uh, 8th century onwards, after Harsha, coming down to say 10th, 11th centuries. That is generally perceived to be the early medieval period, and it was the period when dynasties like Pal, Pratihar, Rashtrakoot, hmm, Chalukyas, hmm, in the south, Cholas, they were ruling, and the political history of India was dominated by these uh, dynasties. Uh, it was during this early medieval period when, properly speaking, Islam came into the contact with the Indian subcontinent. We know that one of the earliest mosques to be built in the Indian subcontinent was in Kerala. It is said that the mosque still, the place, the site of the mosque, still exists in one of the cities of Kerala. The Malabar coast, the whole of it, uh, had Muslim settlements during this period. Most of these people who were, in fact, settling here, the Arabs and the others, they were merchants. Even in the North India, um, at least under the Palas, we have references that there were many, uh, you know, mm, uh, Muslim merchant settlements which had grown in the Pala territory. In fact, there were certain exclusive neighborhoods where these Muslim merchants had their dwellings, and they were being allowed by the Pala rulers to dwell there exclusively. Not only have their dwellings, but there is also evidence, uh, very solid evidence, which tell us build their own mosques. So at least these early medieval rulers, the Palas, mm, uh, they were in fact having a view in which they were allowing this new religion to make their places of worship, to settle the people who belong to that creed, to settle in their territories and profess their faith openly. Um, this phase, and you also know that it was during this period when the Abbasid court uh, had relations with these rulers of India, and a large number of scholars were being brought to Baghdad. Many of the Sanskrit works which were being translated, it was because of this, give and take, the trade and commercial interests, the give and take of scholars, which resulted in all that. But then this period was followed by the second phase of the medieval, which today we call as the Sultanate period. Uh, the Sultanate period itself was a period, as you know, that the Delhi Sultanate was established in 1206, uh, much after the invasion of Sultan Mahmud. In fact, during the 10th century that the incursions, the Ghaznavite incursions had started. So even when we are talking about the Sultanate, although we say that the Sultanate period starts from 12th century onwards, but whenever traditionally anywhere this course starts, the first person whom we talk about is Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni. He doesn't belong to the 12th century. He is pre-Sultanate period. He belongs to 10th century. But suffice to say that this whole Sultanate period, or whatever you call it, is a period when the Muslims emerged as the sultans and rulers. And we know that among them, technically speaking, the pre-Sultanate period, the first such person who came and occupied certain territories of India was Sultan Mahmud, his incursions, and later on, Punjab, Multan, these territories were being actually ruled by his son Sultan Masood, the rule of the Ghaznavites, 10th, 11th centuries. And then, of course, from 12th century, we have the Ghurids who came and established. And among the Ghurids, the first were the Ilbari Turks, Sultan Iltutmish, who established the Delhi Sultanate, although the real conqueror, actually, the person who led the forces of Muizuddin bin Sam was um, Qutbuddin Abaq. But Sultan Iltutmish is supposed to be the first actual sultan who went on to establish the Delhi Sultanate. The Ilbaris continued for a number of years, for a few decades, and one of the most powerful amongst them was Sultan Balban. You must have heard about his theory of kingship. And then, and it was also a period you should know that it was also the period when Changiz Khan was very, very active in Central Asia. In fact, it is said that Changiz Khan Temujin, as was his actual name, came up till the river Sindh. Fortunately for us, he did not cross the Sindh. But we know that during the period of the Ilbari Turks, especially Iltutmish, during the reign of Aibak Iltutmish and then their successors, Delhi and its regions, in fact, emerged as centers of attraction for the Muslim elites. Due to the incursions of Changiz Khan, you know that Baghdad was sacked. The Khwarezmian Empire was laid to waste. You know, one of the reasons why these so-called Ilbari Turks could not return back to their home territory and decided to stay back in India. Uh, and because they were able to, especially Iltutmish was able to create stability in this area, in the area beyond Sindh. So most of the people who had suffered at the hands of the Mongols, first Changiz and then ultimately Hulagu and the others, they started migrating towards uh, Delhi. The Delhi Sultanate emerged as one of the core centers of the Muslim elites during that period. The ulama, the mashayikh, the nobles, all type of people, they were attracted. Some to save their lives, some to get hold of lucrative positions. You know that under the Ilbari Turks, the Indians were not given any position. They were not recruited into service. It was only the Turks were being recruited. So there was a demand for these people who were coming here. They would get jobs. They were the elites of the period, you can say. And so slowly and gradually, uh, Delhi emerged as one of the nerve centers of Islam. Uh, it emerged as one of the sanctified cities, so much so that our sources started mentioning Delhi as Hazrat-e Delhi. So many great saints, Sufis, and theologians were buried here that the honorific of Hazrat was attributed to Delhi. So one can say that during the this period, due to the presence of the religious classes who had been persecuted at the hands of the Mongols, it was but a natural tendency that religion was being given precedence. A number of very important Sufis, many great theologians, men of letters, men of culture, they came and made Delhi a vibrant Muslim capital. Ultimately, after the demise of Sultan Balban, and you probably must be knowing, you must have heard, because in these brief lectures everything cannot be dealt with. But remember what Sultan Balban did. He came up with a theory that he came up with this theory. I'm not going to deal with all that, but I would just point out that one of the important major elements of the theory of kingship of Balban was the fact that the Sultan's position was next to that of the Prophet himself. He did not dare himself to be known as the Khalifa. Remember also that uh, Qutbuddin Aibak, the commander of Delhi, who had conquered Delhi for 2 years, he did not take up the title of Sultan. He took up the title of Sultan only and only after he, number one, got a manumission letter. A letter declaring that he was no more a slave. And then, secondly, he got a letter from the Khalifa, the nominal Khalifa. Poor guy, possibly he did not even know about the existence of these people. He would have been made to sign up after these people would have sent him some money. But because Khalifa's position was such that he was supposed to be the successor to the Prophet, um, every land belonged, the Muslim land was supposed to be ruled by the Khalifa. So you had to have a letter from the Khalifa authorizing you to become the Sultan. And that is what Aibak did. And then when Sultan Iltutmish had become the king, the Sultan, even he had to get this letter from the Khalifa from Baghdad, and he started acting as the Sultan, as the legitimate ruler of this territory after the establishment of the Delhi Sultanate. The legitimacy of was acquired from the Khalifa. They would trace their legitimacy from there. But what Balban did, he did not demand any letter from the Khalifa. The caliphate was still there. The nominal caliphate continued. But, and by this time, he could have, in fact, if it was very difficult for him to get from the Abbasid Caliphate, he could have taken some legitimacy from the Seljukids. But he did not do that. What Sultan Balban did is that on coming to the throne, he declared that Sultan is a position which was given to a person by God Himself. Don't ask me how I became the king. It is God who appointed. खलीफा को कौन चुनता था? खलीफा, अगर आप इस्लामिक हिस्ट्री उठा के पढ़ के देखें तो जो मुसलमानों का खलीफा है, चाहे वो द पायस खलीफेट हो, हजरत अबू बकर never came up with a letter or any dream or any claim that it was God who had appointed him. Neither the next caliph after him, Hazrat Umar, nor Hazrat Usman, none of them. In fact, when Ali also became the Khalifa, he also became the Khalifa when the people, the Muslims, the elites of the Muslims chose him to become one. So Khalifa traditionally would emerge not through the will of the God, but through the will of the people. And now that's another matter, that after this pious caliphate, the Khilafat was turned into Mulukiyat, kingship, Muawiyah and his progeny. and after Muawiyah and his progeny were done away with, we know that the Abbasids came to power. When Abbasids came to power, then again they did not claim that God has ordained that they should become so. Their claim to authority was that they were the persons who fought for the claims and rights of Ahl Bayt. And thus, the people chose them to become the Khalifa. It was either the might or the claim that they were taking up the job of protecting orders which were told to us by the Prophet. Balban doesn't do any of that sort. He never takes the name of the Khalifa at all. Neither he tries to get a letter for himself, nor he declares himself to be a parallel Khalifa. He never does that. What he does is that he declares that the position of the Sultan is next to that of the Prophet himself. And just like the Prophet is chosen by God, people do not choose a Prophet. It is an office given by God. So is the office of the Sultan. In other words, Balban's kingship, he declared, was a divine kingship. But to be on a safer side, he also went on to claim that he was related to a family of kings. He took the name of certain mythical, legendary kings, names of whom occurred in some of the mythologies of the Persian tradition. He took the name of Afrasiab, who was a character of a novel, but tried to trace his origin that I belong to a noble family, and because of my standing, God has chosen me, and thus I am the Zillallah, the shadow of God on earth. One thing which emerges during the reign of Balban is that he took this claim to be a very serious claim and started discriminating against all people of low birth. Let me not go into all the details of this. No Hindu was preferred. No person of low birth was preferred. Sultan was the Zillallah, all right, a shadow of God. Now remember this term Zillallah because it would be repeated under the Mughals as well. We would see that when Aurangzeb invokes the term Zillallah, he invokes it in a little different way. If Balban would claim that because he is a chosen of God, because he belongs to a very noble family, he cannot tolerate the lowborn. Aurangzeb, on the other hand, in the Farman to Radha Raj Singh, would claim that because the position of king is derived from God, as the king is Zillallah, then he has certain duties towards Khalqullah. We would be dealing with this, whole concept of Zillallah as formulated by Aurangzeb. When we reach Aurangzeb, at the moment I won't go into the detail, but I'm just trying to say that this whole concept of the divine authority to the king, Balban, we know that his successors were weak, and very soon we find that during the uh, period following the death of Balban, the Khaljis came to power, the Khalji revolution. Who were these Khaljis? Khaljis were again Turks, but of lower social order. जो एक टेरिटरी है अफगानिस्तान की, वहां के रहने वाले थे, और उन पहाड़ियों पे कहा जाता था कि ये गडरिये थे ये. And because they had taken power with force from the Ilbari Turks, it was imperative for them to recruit people other than the Ilbari Turks. अब जिनको हटा के आए अब उनको तो नहीं लेंगे ना, उनसे तो जंग थी, उनसे शिकवा भी था, उनसे शिकायत भी थी, उन्होंने इनको डिस्क्रिमिनेट किया था, कभी हाई पोजीशंस पे नहीं लिया था, तो अब ये कैसे लेते? पूरा झगड़ा ही इनका इल्बरी टर्क से था. So when they came to the power, the policy of not taking Turks into service was done away with. भाई ये खुद ही का इनको खलजियों को इल्बरी टर्क्स ही नहीं मानते थे. And so, thus it was not the love of the Indians, but due to the fact that they needed personnel for their bureaucracy, for their administration, and the fact that now there were very few pure Turks who were available to them, the Khaljis were constrained to employ people of Indian origin. And when people of Indian origin were recruited, mostly the converts, mostly those who were Muslims, but who had been in India, settled in India for a long period of time, what happened was that the process of Indianization started with the period of the Khaljis. And when the local element came in bureaucracy, they understood the problems much better. Now, the Khaljis could direct their attention towards the finances, towards reforms, and thus we know that fiscal reforms took place under Al Abdul Khilji. Market control measures took place. The prices were tried to be controlled, because by now the elites of the Khaljis, they were very well aware कि ये जो classes हैं जो tax को collect करती हैं, the intermediary classes, khud muqaddam chaudhry, where they were committing the mistakes. So not only the khud muqaddam chaudhrys, these intermediary classes were tried to be controlled through new appointments, new measures. But all this led to one further development, which is very, very crucially important. One of the reasons why this coming of Khaljis to power is known as a Khalji revolution. And that was that through these new indigenous recruits, the Islamic culture, Islamic religion started now percolating down to the masses. The Muslim culture and religion started spreading started getting introduced even in the rural areas. And when the Islamic culture, you may say Muslim culture, not Islamic, Muslim culture, tehzeeb, when it started percolating, people became aware of what this new religion was. Many developments took place. Now, one of the first developments which took place during that period was that some of those non Muslims also started getting appointed to the lower positions. In fact, not only to lower positions, we would see that when we deal with Alauddin Khilji's period, that there were certain mint masters. For example, Thakku Peru, who was the mint master. Mint master किसे कहते हैं? जिसके जो एक वो सुपरिंटेंडेंट, वो ऑफिसर जिसके अंडर में सिक्के जो हैं वो तैयार किए जाते हैं. A very crucially important position. The coins are struck, क्योंकि पूरी जो किसी की आपकी थोड़ी बहुत भी जो धाक आपके सिक्के के थ्रू फैली हुई है वो खत्म हो गई तो फिर आप भी गए. रिमेंबर what happened under Muhammad bin Tughlaq when the coins were, being minted at home. So you need certain very confidential officers who would carry on this duty, this very important, crucially important official duty. Thakur Peru was not a convert. He was a non-Muslim. And we are fortunate enough that a number of his writings, he was, a geometrician, a mathematician. जाहिर है कि जब तक मेटल्स के बारे में ना जाए, उसको कितना कितना मिक्स करके क्या बनेगा, कैसे बनेगा, वेट्स, मेजर्स, जब तक मिंट मास्टर नहीं बन सकता है. तो ही वाज बेसिकली अ पर्सन ऑफ साइंस, मैथमेटिकल साइंस, यू कैन से, एस्ट्रोनॉमी, एस्ट्रोलॉजी, architecture, all those fields which are based on measurement. So Thakur Peru was one of the important officers, not under the Tughlaqs or under the Mughals. He is one of the important officers under Sultan Alauddin Khilji. So after the Khalji revolution took place, after the Khaljis came to the power, we now find that a number of, indigenous people started getting recruited into jobs. जिल्लल्लाह अपनी जगह पे है, लेकिन gradually अब जिल्लल्लाह का didn't mean that he was going to discriminate against any low caste or people या जो non sayyids or this and that, वो एकदम से अब खत्म होता हुआ ना. And then when the Tughlaqs came to power, we'll come to that later on. We would be dealing with some of this for Feroz Shah and others. When Tughlaqs come to power, further impetus was given to the recruitment of the non-Muslim. बगैर पढ़े हुए, we attribute this kind of non-Muslims. In the Delhi Sultanate, from the period of Alauddin, from the period of Muhammad bin Tughlaq and Feroz Shah Tughlaq, a large number of them were getting, appointed, and ultimately, under the Lodis, the flood doors had been opened. By now, it was a given thing. अब जो sources मिलेंगे आपको लोधी पीरियड के भी, वो बगैर कुछ वो किए हुए, वो जब नोबल्स के नाम बताएंगे तो उसमें अचानक आपको नाम मिलेगा विच इज अ हिंदू नेम विदाउट एनी फर्दर डिस्कशन के कौन क्या है. सो बाय लोधी पीरियड it was an accepted. So, the first phase which we have is the phase of the early medieval period. The second phase is the Sultanate period. And then ultimately, the last phase with which one should concern ourselves is the Mughal period, when the Mughals from Babur onwards, the whole dynasty, जो 16th century में आती है, and continues up till you can say the mid half of the 18th century or 19th century. So these are the three important, crucially important phases. And let me also mark that the when the Mughals came to power, it was a period when once again the Turks were ruling. कोई चेंज नहीं आया था. जो दिल्ली सल्तनत से जो चीजें स्टार्ट हुई थी, तुर्कों का रूल, एक तरीके से आप कह सकते हैं वही आगे बढ़ा था. Now in this entire period which we have seen, at least from सुल्तान महमूद को मान लीजिए, सुल्तान महमूद से लेके और मुगलों तक जो ये लंबा पीरियड है, जिसको ये माना जाता है कि एक डार्क पीरियड था. मोदी जी तो अक्सर इस चीज को कहते हैं कि वी हैड बीन enslaved. जब मोदी जी या बीजेपी के लीडर्स व्हेन दे स्टार्ट स्पीकिंग, they do not discriminate between the colonial masters and these Muslim rulers. वो ये हमें बताते हैं कि 2000 साल की कैद के बाद अब हम आजाद हुए. ऐसा लगता है कि जैसे 2000 साल से, ये जब से हर्षा की हुकूमत गई थी तब से लेके और अब तक सिर्फ एक. लेकिन इस पीरियड में भी जो एक, मैंने आपसे ये पूरा एक जो इतने लंबे अरसे के लिए को मैंने जिक्र किया आपसे तमहीद के तौर पे, जैसे इंट्रोडक्शन, अब तक आप समझ ही गए होंगे कि ये टॉपिक एक लेक्चर में नहीं. देयर आर सर्टेन इंडिविजुअल किंग्स who are singled out to be criticized and to be commented upon. One can say to be maligned. For example, among the pre-Mughal rulers, Sultan Mahmud. Sultan Mahmud is the original sinner, you can say. A person who is supposed to have come to India to establish Islam, to destroy Hinduism. सोमनाथ टेम्पल तोड़ी थी, बुत चिकन. अडवाणी जी की आपको तकरीरें याद होंगी, मालूम नहीं आपने सुनी कि नहीं. मंदिर तोड़ने की जब बात होगी तो, इस्लाम को फैलाने की बात होगी तो पहला नाम जो लिया जाता है दैट इज सुल्तान महमूद, द Ghaznavid ruler of the 10th century. He died in 1030 AD. Sultan Mahmud's son Masood actually ruled over Punjab and Multan. उसको गाली नहीं पड़ती. Every chosen epithet is reserved for Sultan Mahmud. He is the first. Then you have another controversial personality of the Sultanate period, Firoz Shah Tughlaq. He is also supposed to be a person who played with the religion, discriminated against the Hindus, killed the Shias, and so on and so forth. So much is made out of the discriminatory policies of Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Among the Mughal rulers, you have uh, the first Zahiruddin Babar. तो मुझे याद है भाई, अडवाणी जी की वो तकरीरें, बाबर की औलाद. Who doesn't remember the whole Ayodhya sin? And रिक्शे तांगे वाले से भी आप पूछिएगा तो अब बाबर का नाम लीजिएगा तो वो जिसने मंदिर तोड़वाया. A person who was not only the establisher of the Mughal Empire but also the person who re-established Islam. Incidentally, बाबर को अगर हिंदुस्तान में गालियां पड़ती हैं तो पाकिस्तानी उसे बहुत इज्जत से नाम लेते हैं, आपस में जंग की वजह से. And then of course you have another person जो अभी शुरू हुआ है, since the rise of Hindutva. Till the rise of Hindutva, among the Mughals, there were only two bad kings, dark kings. One Babar, one Aurangzeb. अब औरंगजेब के बारे में क्या कहें? Aurangzeb was the, peak of everything which is bad. उससे बुरा तो हो ही नहीं सकता. Remember, just a few years back, even a road which is named after this king, the name was changed. He's supposed to be a person who harmed Hinduism very badly, who mixed religion. He did. In Pakistan, he is the hero. बीच में बाबर और औरंगजेब के बीच में एक नाम रिसेंटली हिंदुस्तान में आना शुरू हुआ है. पाकिस्तान में वो था. If you are a student in Pakistan, if your schooling is in Pakistan, I am 100% sure that you're not that much aware about Akbar the Great. Because in the Pakistani historiography, Akbar is looked down upon. In fact, in 1992, when there was a seminar in Delhi, sponsored by the ICHR, held at India International Center, there were certain Pakistani historians who were invited there. And one of them presented a paper in which he pointed out that the schools of Pakistan were not even teaching about Akbar. Akbar was not introduced because he was supposed to be the person who was responsible for contaminating Islam. In India, from the period of Jawaharlal Nehru till the rise of Hindutva, Akbar was supposed to be a great king, Akbar the Great. And each and every textbook, whether in school or in colleges or in universities, Akbar was celebrated. But in the last few years, we have seen that even regarding Akbar, much has recently been written trying to malign and paint him as one of the tyrants of the period, who also, just like Aurangzeb, although a little refined, but just like Aurangzeb, he was also a person who was anti Hindu. So today, as you are the students, as you face the modern challenges to you, there are five kings of medieval period who are very controversial as far as their, you know, approach towards state and religion is concerned. Sultan Mahmud, who was never the king of the country, whose incursions took place. His son Masood ruled over certain territories, but he did conquer India. His invasions took place. So he is taken to be the culprit number one. The second, Firoz Shah Tughlaq, among the Delhi sultans, he is picked out to be shown as one of those who discriminated against the Hindu subjects. In fact, it is pointed out that the establishment of the Vijayanagar Empire by Hariharan Bukka, a Hindu empire, was as a reaction to what Firoz Shah did during his period. It was a reaction of the Hindus against the Tughlaqs, as symbolized by the rule of Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Among the Mughals, Babur, the original culprit, followed now by Akbar, who, remember the controversy, Haldi Ghati, कौन महाराणा प्रताप ग्रेट है कि अकबर ग्रेट है? The whole, uh, as far as state and religion is concerned, apart from the fact that Hindutva is trying to malign Akbar, even apart from that, state and religion, whenever you take up this topic, Akbar emerges out to be a very important person, and we would be trying to deal with that. Although, as far as my students are concerned, they would feel that it's a repetition because in the last semester we have already dealt with that, but because now we are going to deal with this topic and relate it with what happened during the period of Aurangzeb. So I'll be dealing with this aspect also. And lastly, when we end this series of lectures, this particular theme, I would be ending this theme by a lecture on the religious policy of Aurangzeb, in which I would be then looking at how far would it be correct to believe that Aurangzeb was just negative, just dark, and nothing else. Now, this is an introductory lecture tomorrow, today, and tomorrow I would be starting with the Sultanate period. We would start with Sultan Mahmud and then carry on, and would try to be as brief as possible, but we would try to look at the whole thing, that how state had used religion, or you can say how religion has used state to further the politics during the medieval period. I hope that you would bear with me, because these things all जितना भी आप ब्रीफ हो लीजिए, these things are such which need some elaboration. It's only then that you would actually be able to understand not only what happened in the past, but also the present day politics as is being played out. लेकिन एक चीज और याद रखिए, हम लोग मजहब और सियासत से डील कर रहे हैं, लेकिन जो पिछले 1-2 महीने में नजर आ रहा है कि सारा मजहब, सारी सियासत एक तरफ रह जाती है जब नेचर अपना रोल शुरू करता है। जब कोरोना वायरस हम पे अटैक कर रहा है, तो वो ये देख के नहीं कर रहा है कि कौन किस रिलीजन से ताल्लुक रखता है। ये सब जो रिलीजन का यूज है, ये अपने को बढ़ाना, अपनी ताकत को फैलाना, अपने रूल को एक तरीके से परकुलेट करना, इसके अलावा कुछ नहीं। थैंक यू वेरी मच। मीट यू होपफुली टुमारो वंस अगेन।